Milk is the most important food. If there's one food you absolutely must include in your diet, it's milk. Or even if you're lactose intolerant, don't just write milk off. Try fixing other factors first before eliminating it from your diet. It's just so important. These and similar statements were made repeatedly in a 2-hour podcast I watched here on YouTube a few days ago. I won't tell names because I'm not building my channel on negativity or by bashing others, even though in this case, the person might actually deserve it. Anyway, this person mentioned so many times during the podcast that milk is the most important food that I really have to question whether this person actually is an independent scientist. This person somehow found a way to bring milk into the conversation even when a completely different topic was being discussed. Heck, the last sentence of the podcast was literally, milk is the best food. And the worst part, not once was the quality of the milk mentioned. Seriously, conventional milk is pretty much the worst food you can eat or drink. But let's be real, either this person is super addicted to milk or, and this seems far more likely, they are funded by the dairy industry, or both. Everything I said so far is meant to be humorous. I'm not bashing anyone. Or am I? No, seriously. Let's bring some seriousness and credibility into this video. In this video series, we're going to take a closer look at whether milk really is that great and what it actually can or can't do for you. But first, let's get the obvious out of the way. Although it doesn't seem so obvious for many. Not even for some scientists. Topics today: why conventional milk is harmful to your health. One major concern is the use of antibiotics in industrial livestock farming. Dairy cows under high production pressure often develop diseases like mastitis, which is udder inflammation. To treat these infections, antibiotics are administered. In practice, residues can be detected in the milk. These residues may lead to health issues such as promoting antibiotic-resistant bacteria or disrupting the human gut microbiome. Another critical aspect is hormonal residues in milk. While the use of artificial growth hormones is banned in the EU, cows naturally produced higher levels of hormones like estrogen and progesterone during late pregnancy. These hormones end up in the milk and with regular consumption could potentially disrupt the human hormonal balance. The growth factor IGF-1, which is present in higher concentrations in high-yielding cows, is also linked to an increased risk of certain cancers. The animal's diet significantly impacts milk quality as well. Conventionally raised cows are mainly fat concentrated feed like corn and soy meal, which boosts milk production. However, this type of feeding alters the milk's fatty acid composition, resulting in significantly less omega-3 fatty acids, conjugated linoleic acids, and fat-soluble vitamins. Pasture-raised cows that eat fresh grass and herbs produce milk with a much better nutrient profile. Another important but rarely discussed issue is the technical processing of milk. Conventional milk is almost always pasteurized and homogenized. Pasteurization, where milk is briefly heated to high temperatures, destroys important enzymes and sensitive vitamins. Additionally, heating forms AGEs, advanced glycation end products, and Maillard compound. The effects are even more severe in ultra-high temperature milk, where nearly all natural nutrients are lost and harmful chemical compounds are formed in much greater quantities. Animal welfare also has a major influence on milk quality. In conventional farming, dairy cows are usually kept indoors without access to pasture. They often stand in hard, slatted floors, have little space to move, and live under constant stress. The life expectancy of high-yielding cows is just 3 to 5 years, much shorter than the 15 years for animals raised under more natural conditions. Stress and disease impact milk composition, for example, through elevated cortisol levels and other hormones that can end up in the milk. Diseases like mastitis are common, and pus can enter the milk. High-yielding cows are often inseminated again shortly after giving birth, meaning they produce milk during pregnancy, which further increases the hormone levels in the milk, particularly estrogen and progesterone. This may also affect the hormonal balance in humans. Particularly controversial is the milk protein beta-casein. Conventional milk usually comes from cows with the A1 gene variant. This protein is broken down in the human digestive tract into a peptide called beta-casomorphin 7, which acts like an opioid and is suspected of promoting inflammation, permeating the gut lining, and triggering neurological effects. Some studies link it to higher risk of cardiovascular disease and neurological disorders. A2 milk found in older breeds like Jersey or Zebu cows only contains the A2 variant of beta-casein, which is considered more digestible and does not produce beta-casomorphin 7. But to be clear, conventional milk is not acutely toxic, at least not for most people, but it can make you sick in the long run. Now, some people will say now, there's no proof for your claims. Well, actually, there is evidence for everything I've described so far. And of course, there's not 100% absolute proof. How could there be? Milk is an economically and culturally significant product. Milk is a staple food in Western countries, heavily subsidized by governments and closely tied to lobbying interests, dairy industry, agricultural organizations, deeply rooted in culture. That means research that harms milk's reputation is politically and economically sensitive. There's often little will to conduct or fund such long-term studies, especially if they challenge the status quo. And the scientist in that podcast was like, quality of milk doesn't matter. What matters is milk. Milk. Good thing we talked about this. In part 2, I will explain whether milk is always unhealthy, what kind of milk is better, and whether you really need to include milk in your diet just because it's supposedly so valuable and essential. Is it? So stay tuned and make sure not to miss the next video. So, follow